Right. So if anybody who even barely knows me or knows anything about the work I do, my writing, my teaching, then you probably know who this person is, Douglas Coupland. Because his work has been a large part of my life. And thank you, Doug, for being here and chatting with me. And Doug has written close to, I was trying to count them. It looks like it's close to 30 books. How many books have you written?
I've actually not counted. It seems a book a year of some sort for 30 years, 31 years now, Lord. So that's, boy, I feel like one of those Conestoga wagons I always write about, going across the prairies, and as the trip gets longer, they start throwing, the first thing they go is the grand piano, and then books, and then the heavy furniture, and by the time they get to the West Coast, they've got the wheels, and that's about it. So yeah.
So this is the question of all interview questions that actually stumped you. How many books have you written? Like, I don't know.
I just average it out now, one a year. I don't know.
No, I was trying to, and I was like, well, what does this count as this? And you've also contributed to a lot, but also, of course, you're an incredibly prolific visual artist. And so, yes, just there's so much work to explore. If anyone is new to your work, then you have a lot to look forward to. But thank you, Doug, for talking with me. And my book that's coming out, which I'm excited about, there towards the end of the book, in 2 chapters, I talk about some of in one chapter, I talk about life after God. And in one chapter, I talk about Hey Nostradamus. I talk about Hey Nostradamus, and I focus a lot on Reg and how he's a religious bigot. He's such an unlikable character. Yet he is the one that at the end has this transformation, and he seems to maybe become human for the first time. And it's surprising that at the end, many people find themselves empathizing with his character. And so I'm just wondering about when you're crafting a character, it's a strange question, but well, first of all, why did you end that book on such an unlikable character and actually kind of push your readers into a space of seeing him in a different light, seeing that he could actually change?
Well, I mean, the book is partially about forgiveness and redemption. And I've noticed in my own life that the people I dislike intensely when I first meet them, I actually end up becoming the best friends with them. And I think in Jungian psychology, this is called shadowing, and you see yourself in them is what you're really seeing. It's not them. And then that forces you to think about, oh, well, it's actually me I'm having a disliking here. So what's that about? And then through, what becomes a friendship with these people, you iron out a few wrinkles in yourself.
Yes.
Not that people are there for therapy, but it's just, 60 years on planet Earth has taught me that. And I think that because Reg is, the father is so intensely dislikable throughout the book, that you're so prepared to just, and then like something happens and something melts inside of, well, myself, and I hope the reader, and you realize that you do have this dormant capacity for forgiveness, or I mean, he talks a little bit about his own history, not much, but enough, and you realize, oh, well, he's product of when and where he's from, just like anyone else, I think. I think that in the case of Reg, it's just he's coming from and as much as there's anything resembling Shakerism in Western Canada, he's a Mennonite. And my father had kept cattle out in the Fraser Valley amongst one of his many things he did. He was a busy guy. And in the early 1970s, at the corner of the property across the street, they put in the Mennonite Brethren Church. It was the corner of Ross Road and McClure. I'm not even sure if it's there anymore. And so we went out to the ranch on weekends, and the only real images I had of piety in my head came from Sundays when the people there would congregate. And it really sort of stuck in my head. And so, especially with Hey Nostradamus, a lot of the characters are Mennonite or from the Fraser Valley. And to this day, I'm still running into people like, oh man, your book helped me escape the Fraser Valley. They're also, by the way, here's a fun thing. You can tell if someone's Mennonite. They only have about 8 or 10 surnames. Like there's like Clausen, Eby, Dick, what are some others? Anyhow, yeah, Wikipedia will have them, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was thinking that's why I think this is when, I mean, of course, literature is great for this. When you kind of make assumptions about someone, and then, you know, in real life, it takes quite a long time and a lot of patience to do this. It does with literature as well, but where you get some time to understand someone's backstory and why they're the way they are, and you realize, like you said, that you're reacting sometimes against the things they do that you're actually doing. But I was thinking about, that's why I think I like the, you know, binge watching kind of long form television drama, because there's so much time to develop those characters.
Yeah, it's I think, you know, and this is Marshall McLuhan, is like when one medium eclipses an older medium, the way that, say, TV did with film, it allows the former medium to become an art form. So when the internet eclipsed television, it allowed TV the freedom to expand, and then we, starting with The Sopranos, we did get actual art.
Yeah.
And we continue tons of it. So I think that's sort of one way of looking at that phenomenon. But there is that just generosity of time. It's something like Breaking Bad was just amazing that way.
Yes.
So
absolutely. Well, in Life After God, when I talk with students about the character of Kathy and the characters in My Hotel Year, and I was just thinking, her character is not someone that you dislike. You're drawn to her, but I'm just thinking about in that section where the narrator is living in the hotel in East Vancouver, where, if maybe people aren't familiar with Vancouver, but there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of addiction, a lot of, you know, this, and this Kathy character, it's very beautiful, because it's like you take us to the core of who she is and her desire, her childlikeness, her desire for wonder and transcendence. And so I don't know, I just wanted to ask you about that character, but because you're taking a person that many would just walk by on the street and think, oh, you know, she's this rough character, or she's homeless, or whatever, but you really show her as there's something really glorious and beautiful about her. And so I just wanted to ask you about maybe your thinking with that character.
Well, we're back to redemption again, and empathy. Maybe redemption is just a form of empathy, or vice versa. I mean, you've been to Vancouver, obviously, and you've seen the homelessness, even in the few years since you've been here last, it's an exponential issue here. And
Wow.
I think if you're American, it sort of maps on to like Market Street in San Francisco. Anyhow, and I know some people who actually ended up on the street, and I mean, everyone had a mother, everyone had a father, and how did people end up that way? And I think because that sort of existence is almost not even day by day, but moment by moment, that there is a sort of enforced clarity that can come with it. You're much more focused about what you actually need.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I find that usually people who are in comfortable situations, they're always kind of like, boy, like something's missing, or I need this or whatever. But you don't find that with
Yeah.
in unhoused people. And um, and I mean, it's when you write about people whose lives are, markedly different from your own. Um, you don't want it to be sort of like class system ecotourism.
Yeah.
It has. Why are you dealing with these people anyhow? Kathy, um, I mean, I do believe it's not just her character, but there really is just this other world that's just right there. And if you sort of squint your brain just right, or if you like, oh, you can just get a glimpse of it. And it's not just a glimpse of your own psyche. Um, yeah, let's put a pin in where we, okay, the other world for a moment. But, uh, here I am, I'm inside my body, or rather, C.S. Lewis says, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, and you have a body.
Mm.
And I love that expression. And so here's my soul inside my body, and your soul inside your body. And why is it so hard to know yourself? And you'd think, you being in your own body, you would have some kind of home field advantage or something. But no, I mean, to realize truths about yourself, I mean, there's things like, okay, finding someone unlikable and realizing that you see yourself in them, and through empathy you learn more. But you know people go through like really expensive therapy for decades, and I've never done therapy, and I don't know if they're any closer to knowing anything about themselves than they were at the beginning. I say that therapy it's like going to Antarctica. It's uh, incredibly expensive. It takes forever. And when you get there, there might not actually be anything there, and you'll wonder why you went. So, um, so there's that aspect of the psyche and the unknowability of any person to themselves. But then there's also, again, that just the veil. Um, well, actually, here's a way of explaining it. Uh, uh, my mother was recently in the hospital, and she passed away about 3 months ago. And she had a stroke, and for the last 2 months of her life, I mean, it was horrible. You don't want wish a stroke on anybody. And so her left side didn't work at all, and only her right uh, arm worked. But it was quite horrible. But there was, and she could talk. She knew what day it was, and we could talk about things. But uh, there was a veil between herself and her situation, her reality, that, well, I know I'm in the hospital, and which hospital is it again? And okay, and so well, when am I getting out here? I know something's wrong. What's wrong? And in the same way that there was a veil with my mother, which I think was actually a comfort and a form of protection,
Mm.
which nature gives us. I think that there are other forms of veils. And so if you're driving your car, driving down the street, and it's Tuesday afternoon, and dum-de-dum, and you think you're calm and cool and alert, but there is still a veil or two or three. Who knows how many veils there are? And yeah, uh, and I think it's through character uh, and through other people's personalities, and that you can again just cut through these veils.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the best way of explaining it. Um,
That's interesting because of the word, the Greek root of apocalyptic is the unveiling, and
Okay.
yes, yes.
I
That's
didn't know
why.
that. That's wonderful.
Oh, yes,
Wow.
yes. And so the book of Revelation, which is the book, the Apocalypsis, is the idea of, disclosing the truth or taking off the veil, which, again, with some of the more apocalyptic stuff that you do, especially like Girlfriend in a Coma, there seems to be this search, that search for we're going to keep digging and digging and digging and going forward until we find out what the truth is. So it's kind of like we're trying to rip the veil off. So yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, look that up. It's really fascinating what you know,
It's apo.
apocalyptic.
I'm just trying how to that break that up would be apocalyptic. Anyhow, that's Wikipedia. After this, I'll look it up.
Yes, you have to go look up the etymology of but and there was a quote recently of, I saw Cornell West quote it, but I can't remember, he was quoting someone else, but it reminds me of what you were saying. Because someone, I can't remember who said this, but said it's more terrifying to explore the corners of your own soul than it is to go onto the battlefield.
Hmm.
And that kind of reminds me of what you were saying, that sometimes it's really scary,
Well,
going to Antarctica.
well, there's also the long dark night of the soul, which
Mhm.
everyone's had, and 3:30 in the morning, and you know, uh, when things are at their darkest, and morning always does arrive, but that's cold, cool. There's not much comfort when it's happening. Um, I think my worry over the last few years has been, and I wrote, there's a page in Life After God. Sometimes I think the people I might feel sorry for are the people who once possessed the ability to experience the divine or the transcendent, but then somehow lost that ability. And I think that's something I worry about all the time, because as time goes on, it does get harder to access that,
Mm-hmm.
and that just might be an organic function of the human brain, or maybe, well, what if I lose that? Then what's the point of even being alive? That really freaks me out, because then, like, your life just becomes a set of tasks, and then you die. So it's that. So, oh gosh, we're getting awfully dark here, aren't we?
Well, I was going to ask you about, I mean, I know you love animals so much, and actually that's been a huge influence on me. Really. And the way you even bring animals into discussion in Life After God, or you talk about the birds, and you do this in multiple books. But I was wondering, does spending time with animals, does it help you kind of take you back to that place of wonder? Or maybe even, do you think animals can help human beings be more empathetic to one another and more open?
Oh my gosh, I mean, animals, nature is a gift. Oliver Sacks wrote about a patient he had who had, I think it was a 2-minute long memory. So every 2 minutes, his brain refreshed and he was back to start the scratch. And that if you talk to him, it'd seem normal, but then you'd realize, a minute and 59 seconds later, oh, something weird's going on here. And the only thing that offered him solace or a sense of calm was either to be in the church, any church, or nature. That there was something about the sanctity of either of those situations that would calm him down and made his situation bearable. Um, so with animals, I mean, remember, we're animals too. Uh, uh, well, especially true with dogs. People I'm actually quite, what's the word? Um, like if I'm going to meet someone, I need, like be introduced properly. And but if someone's with a dog, it's like, hi, can I dog nap your dog? What a beautiful
Yeah.
dog. I start talking right away. That there, with me, animals are this fantastic disinhibiting device, I suppose,
Mm.
where just suddenly all the layers and shells just of whatever my psyche is just fall away. And uh, last night I met this wonderful dog named Panda at someone's party, and it was just like so instant and friendly and non-problematic. So, uh, oh no, I think I don't know what I'd do without animals. Oh gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Well, is there a book that you can think of, or book or two that you can think of that really helped you to kind of grow your own capacity for empathy? Did it, a book that you
Oh,
can, yeah, or even a work, it can be a film, a book, or even a work of
hmm,
visual art.
what a great question. Hang on, I've never thought of it this way before. I hope you can edit out all the dead space while I sit here.
Yeah, I
Uh,
will.
okay. Um, books. I, I'll suggest a few things. There's a book by Sherwood Anderson called Winesburg, Ohio.
Hmm.
Uh, it's American early 20th century. I think I read that book, oh boy, 10, 15 times maybe. Um, there's the movie 2001, which it's a very long movie.
Yeah.
And um, there's just something as you watch the progression of or evolution of our species, whatever you want to call it, into something animal to something transcendent. I mean, it's metaphorical. It's even when you get it, you're not quite sure you got it, but
Yeah.
boy, there's something there for sure. Um, uh, oh, there's a wonderful book written by Chuck Klosterman.
Hmm.
Uh, it's called Downtown Owl, OWL, and it's set in the town of Owl in North Dakota, where he's from, and it's sort of an updated uh, Winesburg, Ohio. It just sort of goes to the life of the people, and it just you meet so many people, and he describes them so beautifully that you just feel like the span of a book, you had a brand new family of some sort. It was really terrific.
Okay, I don't know about that. I know Klosterman, but I don't know that book. So
Yeah, it was his first novel, and uh, I think he just got so much better known as an essay writer that that one gets sort of lost in the shuffle. But I really recommend it.
yeah, I didn't know I know his essay, so that's great. Well, I'm thinking a good friend of mine wrote an essay. It was actually on your visual art and how much your art, is so much of it is focusing on aspects of your childhood and Canadian identity and all of these things. And of course, a lot of pop art influence. Um, and I did not know, and he through his essay, I learned about how Andy Warhol, the soup cans were a reminder of his mother, giving him soup every day for lunch. And so, even though this seems so impersonal and distant, and I wouldn't think of it as a kind of work of art that would make me feel empathetic for someone, when I learned that, I did, it's like this humanizes him. So, in your visual art, um, when you were creating visual art that has kind of artifacts from your life and collections, I mean, are you kind of inviting the viewers into the space of your life? I mean, I know there's also the brain that you did
Yeah.
of your brain. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, I'm just thinking about, does pop art, the way you create it, have help us empathize, because people tend to think of
oh,
pop art as very cold and distant.
so no,
But
I think of it as the opposite. I think of it as the most democratic form of art, and it's
mm,
certainly the type I, collect and make. And uh, uh, a question I get a lot is, what's the difference between writing and making something visual? And I mean, you're obviously a writer. You know that when you're writing and it's really working well and like, oh, I'm just nailing it. That's a very specific feeling you get in your head.
Yes.
And when you're making something and it's really working out, you get that same sense of like, ooh, nailing it. But it feels very different. It has to be from some different part of our,
Mm.
lobes or what have you. Um, so when I look at pop art or art that I like, it just makes my brain feel the way it does. It just creates a very specific feeling in my brain, and it's not for everybody. But I know for I meet people and I quickly find out like, oh, you like the exact same things I do, and then it turns out we like the same artist, and then we probably on and on and on and on. So yeah. Um, I'm looking at it's a piece I did last year. I'll send you a copy. I can find it. It's it's a QR code that is pi to 1,000 digits, and
Mm.
I've gone through it, and everywhere where there's a black or 4 squares like that, they get turned into a color that's going to read either as white or black from the scanner's point of view. And it's a beautiful, beautiful sort of a tapestry of color and squares, but and it gives something. Its message is something like pure and irreducible. It's like 3.1415926 by 358 and on. But it's also just makes my brain feel tingly. I mean,
Mm.
sometimes it might be just as basic as that.
Mm.
So, I'll send you that once we're finished here.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Well, I'm aware of the time. I don't know how much time I've already taken. It seems like it's longer than what I said. So, but but can I ask you one more quick question?
Sure.
It's kind of a big one though. Maybe it is too quick. Well, I can cut if you don't want to answer it, I can cut it off. So don't worry. But I was just wondering, because here we are on Zoom having a good conversation, I think. And but so many people, who are these people? But critics talk about technology as being kind of a barrier to human empathy. We think about, the keyboard warriors sitting behind the screen, making horrible, dehumanizing comments online. But do you think that the incredible progress in technology that we have, especially with things like social media and things like Zoom, do you think this can help us empathize, grow in our empathy, or do you think it does create more barriers?
I think that it can definitely help. Maybe you're old enough to remember back when people talked on the telephone.
Yeah, yes.
Nobody does that anymore. And I mean, the video phone was invented by Bell Laboratories and perfected in the early 1960s, but nobody wanted it because who wants to have to like look pretty for a phone call? So but then of course COVID came, and the technology which we're using right now got better, and now I'm finding that it's actually preferable to like have fewer phone calls but longer and with better visuals than it is to like hi, what are you doing, and blah blah like that. You know, technology changes, people don't. I mean, I don't think, but new technologies allow us to explore parts of ourselves that we maybe weren't exploring before. I used the example of the AM radio gave us Hitler and it gave us the Beach Boys. It's just, how you use the technology.
Yes, it's a tool.
I, I'm have to run. I've got, as I told you,
so much for
5 people showing up for dinner.
no, that's
nothing there.
I'm sure it'll be great. You should order takeout. You should order takeout. But thank you so much. It was just wonderful to talk to you as always.
It's a pleasure, and congratulations on your book. It's exciting for you, I know.
Thank
And
you very much. And I stopped